I was forced to the ground. First on my knees, and then flat on my chest. And as I was handcuffed and marched down a hallway, repeatedly asking, why am I being detained? Not once did they tell me why. I pray you never have a moment like this. But I will tell you, in that moment, a lot of questions came to my mind. First of all, where are they taking me? Because I know I'm not just being escorted out of the building. Am I being arrested here? And what will a city already on edge from being militarized think when they see their United States senator being handcuffed just for trying to ask a question?
Hoping Jose Padilla would be here to ask a question, but unfortunately I guess he decided not to show up because there wasn't the theater. And that's all it is.
Vice President JD Vance was in LA today visiting, and he called Senator Alex Padilla Jose Padilla, and it's generating reaction. California Governor Newsom posted this on X saying, quote, JD Vance served with Alex Padilla in the United States Senate. Calling him Jose Padilla is not an accident. This is from an NBC News article. When asked why he referred to the senator as Jose Padilla, a spokesperson for JD Vance said, quote, he must have mixed up two people who have broken the law.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So you got to talk about another full-blown meltdown from the Democrats, this time over JD Vance pulling up to Los Angeles, okay? Los Angeles, ground zero for domestic terrorism in this country, right? We saw that over the past couple of weeks. And JD is there, and he was asked a question about crying, low testosterone Democrat Senator Alex Padilla, who nobody heard of until he decided to make an ass out of himself by breaking into a press conference hosted by Kristi Noem and pretending as if he has the right to demand that she answer his questions in the middle of a press conference, right? When questions were not being asked. And he got his ass whooped by federal agents. And since then, he's been boo-hoo-whining and crying victimhood, right? Even though he got off easy. He's lucky he wasn't shot. He's lucky he hasn't been charged, to be honest with you, because he was resisting the ICE agents, federal agents. But still, that doesn't keep people like him from boo-hoo-whining and crying, making a scene, okay, because he's trying to get attention. Again, nobody has heard of this guy until he decided to play Captain Saving Illegal, which seems to be par for the course when it comes to Democrats nowadays. Chris Van Hollen, another senator from Maryland, who nobody heard of, he flew all the way to El Salvador to play Captain Saving Illegal. So, again, that's just what Democrats are doing at this point, right? They're out here saving illegal immigrants as a way to virtue signal. And JD Vance was asked about Alex Padilla not showing up to his press conference. And JD, during this press conference, while answering this question, called Alex Padilla Jose, right? He called him Jose Padilla. And yeah, you can imagine that Democrats were not too happy about that.
Democrat lawmakers who keep getting handcuffed. The New York Times just did a story. They keep getting handcuffed, suggesting that the Trump administration is cracking down on Democrats. Can you comment on that?
Well, I was hoping Jose Padilla would be here to ask a question, but unfortunately, I guess he decided not to show up because there wasn't the theater. And that's all it is. You know, I think everybody realizes that's what this is. It's pure political theater. These guys show up. They want to be captured on camera doing something. They want to be able to go back to their far left groups and to say, look, me, I stood up against border enforcement. I stood up against Donald Trump. When all they're really standing up for is for drug cartels to run rampant over our country and sex traffickers to be able to continue to traffic little kids into our country. That's what you're doing when you stand against border enforcement. So I think these guys, we ought to laugh them out of the building. We ought to call them out for doing what they're doing, which is grandstanding. And if they want to work seriously on border enforcement and on keeping their communities safe, the Trump administration's door is wide open. But they're not doing that. They'd love the grandstanding. They hate law enforcement because they hate the idea of the United States of America having a border. It's a disgrace, but it is what it is. We'll do one more question.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Okay, I think that was absolutely hilarious, right? The fact that he called Alex Padilla Jose. Alex, his real name is Alejandro, right? I'm wondering why is it that he doesn't want to go by Alejandro, right? Is he trying to whiten up his name, right? Is that what he's trying to do? I don't know. He's lucky that JD didn't call him Juan, right? Or Carlos or Miguel or Luis, Pedro, Antonio, Fernando, Javier, right? Diego, Ricardo, Raul. Oh, man. He lucky he didn't call him, one of these other names, right? I mean, I'm just saying. Nobody ever heard of this dude until like a week ago. So it's like, who knows, right? Who knows? I mean, maybe JD got him mixed up with some other criminal, which is apparently one of the excuses, the explanations that they use for why JD called his man Jose, which, again, is hilarious to me. Partly because, again, we all know that Democrats get triggered by this. Like, for example, you have Adam Schiff, okay, and Gavin Newsom chiming in on this. Adam Schiff says, JD served alongside Alex Padilla and knows better. He's taking a cheap shot to distract from the real fear and havoc this administration is creating. It's pathetic. Gavin Newsom says, JD Vance served with Alex Padilla in the U.S. Senate. Calling him Jose Padilla is not an accident. Yeah, so they're basically boohoo, whine, and cry, racism and bigotry, like Democrats and liberals always do, right? They just say, hey, well, this is racist, and then they cry about it.
Mr. Vice President, how dare you disrespect our senator? You don't know his name, but yet you served with him before you were vice president, and you continue to serve with him today, because the last time I checked, the Vice President of the United States is the President of the U.S. Senate. You serve with him today, and how dare you disrespect him and call him Jose? But I guess he just looked like anybody to you. Well, he's not just anybody to us. He is our senator.
Life can change in an instant. One moment you're fine, the next, well, everything is different. You're left with questions, with pain, with the feeling that you've been wrong, and the system, well, it feels like it is built against you. This is why you need somebody that's on your side, somebody that understands, somebody that will fight for you. At Morgan & Morgan, they're not just lawyers, they're advocates. They're here to give you a voice when yours feels lost. They've recovered billions for people just like you. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, takes on all types of injury cases from car accidents to medical malpractice. They fight for your rights and the compensation that you deserve if you become their client so that you can focus on healing. They've achieved significant verdicts over the past few months for the victims involved in life-altering car crashes, like out in Florida. A $12 million verdict, which was over 34 times the highest insurance offer. And they work on a contingency fee basis, which means that you don't pay unless you win. It's really that simple, to be honest with you. So you can start your claim now with Morgan & Morgan at forthepeople.com/blackconservative, which will be in the description below, right? The link will be in the description below, or you can scan the QR code on the screen with your phone's camera.
JD Vance calling Senator Alex Padilla Jose Padilla at a press conference was 1,000% intentional and completely racist. Please try and explain to me how that's not the case. I would love to try to see those mental gymnastics. So the vice president is in California for some reason or another. I guess he's not getting enough attention from his orange boss man over there. And he said, oh, it's a shame that Jose Padilla isn't here to ask a question. Now, if you recall, Senator Alex Padilla, the Hispanic senator from California, was wrestled to the ground trying to ask a question at a press conference being held by Kristi Noem, after clearly identifying himself as a United States senator. So calling him Jose at a press conference when you worked with the man, you served with him in the Senate, is completely intentional. He knows that's not his name. And then saying that it's not enough of a theatrical performance. As a former theater child myself, there are only two options when we want to cause a scene. One, an overly dramatic soliloquy, and two, a musical number with choreography. There is no in between. So please try and explain to me how this is not intentional and not racist. I would love to see it.
Vice President JD Vance just referred to Senator Alex Padilla, the man who the Trump administration handcuffed and arrested, as Jose Padilla. It's one of the most disgusting things I've seen. Take a look.
Lawmakers who keep getting handcuffed. The New York Times just did a story. They keep getting handcuffed, suggesting that the Trump administration is cracking down on Democrats. Can you comment on that?
Well, I was hoping Jose Padilla would be here to ask a question, but unfortunately, I guess he decided not to show up because there wasn't the theater. And that's all it is. You know, I think everybody realizes that's what this is. It's pure.
See, I know that JD Vance is a professional at being a horrible human being and acting as a smug douchebag, but it doesn't change the fact that this is a disgusting thing to say. JD Vance knows Senator Padilla's name. They were colleagues. They served in the Senate together. And instead of giving him the respect that he deserves as a United States Senator, JD Vance decides to replace his name, change it, make it racist.
Just wanted to let JD Vance know that my senator in the state of California, his name is Alex Padilla. Calculated, strategic marketing bullshit calling him Jose is the first Latino senator in California, and you know that. Well, you probably don't know that. And let's understand, James David, that was purely calculated, strategic on your part. Can we get some politicians to actually act like adults are in the room? James David also said that Senator Padilla was not there because there wasn't going to be theater. Oh, that's rich. That is rich, coming from an administration whose entire marketing, branding campaign is based on political theater. Yeah, I'm sure that's why he didn't show up.
Jose Padilla probably didn't show up, JD, because he'd probably deport him for working. But you're talking about Senator Alex Padilla, who was manhandled, arrested for doing his job. But yeah, sure, go on. Your racism is showing because you're coordinating every Hispanic with the name Jose. You're literally telling us that you're a racist without telling us. But go touch up your mascara.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Liberals are boohoo-whining and crying, claiming that it is racism to call a Hispanic senator Jose when his real name is Alejandro, right? So, you know, I'm just saying, I don't know. These people are really desperate, right? It's one of those things where, like, even if he did it on purpose, the outrage is the point, right? He did it because he knew that you people would be outraged and you would be triggered and you would make fools out of yourselves, bending over backwards, crying about JD calling the dude Jose, right? If he did it on purpose. Now, I don't know if he did it on purpose. I think that we can give him the benefit of the doubt in the sense that, again, nobody knew who Alex Padilla was until he pulled that stunt, right? And that's why he pulled that stunt, because nobody knew who he was, right? He saw that as an opportunity to go viral, to get some name recognition, maybe to pull in some funds, right? Some fundraising. And that's why he did it, right? But otherwise, I mean, who knows about this guy, right? Nobody knows about this dude, right? I guarantee you ask the average person on the street in California, LA, who Alex Padilla is, they're not going to know. Nobody knows, right? He's irrelevant, okay? He's totally irrelevant. So that's kind of the point, right? The point is that this dude is a nobody. It is not even worth remembering his name, right? Especially after he was boohoo-whining and crying on the congressional floor about ICE or federal agents roughing him up a little bit, right? Yeah, this guy is pathetic, okay? He really is pathetic. So with that being said, JD did do an interview, okay, to talk about LA and to talk about the administration's current viewpoints in regards to what is happening with immigration and these Democrats not cooperating with the federal government when it comes to the mass deportations. Take a look.
Vance addressed the Marines in West LA. He sat down with Fox's Bill Malugin for an exclusive interview. Here's a portion of that.
So you're here in Gavin Newsom's backyard.
Yep.
Whole lot going on in the world right now.
Sure.
Why come to LA right now?
Well, first of all, we've wanted to come and check out what's actually going on the ground, show some support to the FBI agents, the National Guardsmen, and the Marines who have been here, I think, bringing peace to what was a very chaotic situation thanks to the leadership of Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. If you really think about what's at stake here is the basic principle of, do we get to enforce federal immigration law when the people's duly elected president says we've got to enforce our borders? And I think obviously the answer is yes. And what you saw in Los Angeles was really, I think, a conspiracy of the mayor, the governor, and a lot of radical left protesters who are going to say, no, we're not going to let people enforce the immigration laws of the United States of America. We in the Trump administration had a different attitude towards that. Obviously, you've seen that immigration happen all over Southern California. I think we've now restored some order to Los Angeles, and thank God that we did, because I think absent President Trump's leadership, you would have seen the city really spiral out of control, which we don't want. I think it's a beautiful city. It's got a lot to offer, but you've got to be able to enforce immigration law.
What's your metric for determining how long the military is going to be here in Los Angeles? Things are calm right now. Are you going to keep them here for a while in case there's more activity? When do you pull them out?
Well, I think what the president says, you got to do this case by case, right? See how this goes, see where we are in a few days, ensure that you don't have the increase in rioting activity. I mean, look, when these riots break out, people can't access basic services, stores get destroyed, people's economic life is destroyed, and of course, if the riots really get out of control, you have people violently attacked. So we're going to pull out the troops when we feel confident that level of instability is not going to return. But of course, when that happens and when the president makes that decision, of course, it's easy to put people back in if you feel like that rioting starts to ramp up again.
At the beginning of the administration, the idea was worse first, right? Targeting the worst of the worst criminals.
Sure.
You guys are still doing that, but we're also starting to see Home Depots getting hit, car washes, agriculture workers. Is the net widening? Because we hear, there's targets, they want 3,000 arrests a day. So are you guys widening the net in terms of who you're going after now?
Well, first of all, Bill, let's step back and appreciate just the radical success of the Trump administration. Simply through having a president who cared about border enforcement, we've gone from close to 3 million illegal border crossings per year to actually net negative illegal immigration in this country. In other words, we're deporting far more people than are coming in illegally into our country. That's exactly what should be happening. And that really all it required was a president who empowered federal law enforcement to do the job of enforcing our borders. So, yes, you're right. Now, what do we do? What the president has said is we really want to focus on the illegal immigrants who came during the Biden administration, but also we're enforcing everywhere. In other words, the president has said if you are an illegal immigrant into this country, you ought to voluntarily go back and come through the proper channels, because we don't want people who have come into the country illegally just staying here indefinitely. That's not the policy of the Trump administration. We've empowered law enforcement to really enforce the law. Yes, we're focusing on the most violent criminals. We're focusing on people who came here illegally over the Biden administration. But put simply, if you came into the country illegally, if you're not a legal resident of the United States of America, you ought to go back home and come through proper channels.
Yeah, so you've seen that, you heard that. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not entirely sure what is so controversial about what JD just said. For whatever reason, what he just said really triggers Democrats. All he's saying is that, listen, if you're in the country illegally, then you got to go back and maybe you can come in if you do it the right way. That's it, right? That's it. We just want you to do it the right way. Okay, you need to go back and we're going to enforce our laws, and that's it, right? I mean, again, I'm not sure exactly what about that is so bad, right? What's so bad that Democrats have to oppose this and commit acts of domestic terrorism? Again, it really doesn't make sense, right? But again, this is why we have the National Guard. This is why we have to use the military. And it really is a damn shame that our country, or put it this way, leftists have become so violent that it's come down to this, right? It's come down to having to use the military. But, hey, it is what it is. The mass deportations are going to continue. And if we have to use the military in order to protect our ICE agents, our federal agents, it is what it is. And no amount of boohoo, whining, and crying and screaming racism, hate, and bigotry, waving foreign flags is going to change that, right? This is not going to change. So shout out to JD, right? He got the Democrats triggered, and when the Democrats are triggered, that means that obviously something is being done right. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.